it could trigger something in the mind that goes like it did with me. As soon as I got high, I realized exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And that was to experience life.
You're listening to Narcotica, a podcast giving you the straight dope about drugs and the people who use them.
As a longtime stoner, it's kind of weird hearing people say weed is, quote, mainstream now, when merely possessing the plant stuff can still earn you serious consequences in many parts of the world. But the growing popularity of cannabis is unmistakable. Marijuana is now a global multi-billion-dollar industry, which, to be fair, it always was, only now it's all legitimate and overtaxed and commercialized instead of enriching drug cartels, although it still does that to some extent. Regardless, cannabis is more popular than ever, with a rapidly growing fandom, especially among older generations. Even Martha Stewart is into CBD now. But while it's great to see so many people starting to dig the awesome benefits cannabis sativa offers, it's important to contextualize the culture and history that got us here. I'm Troy Farah, and you're listening to Narcotica. Before we get to today's episode, which is obviously about the devil's lettuce, we'd like to remind folks that Narcotica is an ad-free, listener-funded program. We could be using this space to sell you a ritzy rehab package or tell you to buy some stupid sleep supplement, but we're not. If you want to help us keep the show running, all you have to do is join us at patreon.com/narcotica. Patrons can request stickers or a shout out on the show. We have other perks that we're developing. But look, we know times are lean right now, understatement of the year, so if you can't help us monetarily, you can give us a boost by rating us, liking us, sharing us, telling all your friends about us, etc. And that's it. Now back to Narcotica. On this show, we've done more than 50 episodes about all kinds of drugs. Opioids, meth, cocaine, psilocybin magic mushrooms, ketamine, even sort of obscure stuff like antibiotics and salvia. But we've never done an episode entirely devoted to cannabis. How weird is that? One of the world's most popular drugs, one I use pretty much every day, and we just haven't gotten to it. So we thought we'd start things off with a bang and bring in one of weed's biggest fans, none other than comedian, musician, and world-famous stoner, Tommy Chong of Cheech and Chong fame. Tommy, welcome to the show.
Please sit down. Everybody sit down. I'm just an ordinary guy.
Also on the show are Narcotica co-hosts Zachary Siegel and Christopher Moraff, beaming from Chicago and Philadelphia, respectively. Say hello, guys.
Hey, guys.
Glad to be here.
First of all, what are your thoughts on this moment? Did you ever think you would live in a time where around 15 states had legalized recreational marijuana, 35 have medical cannabis, etc.?
Yeah, because seeing how I'm poorly educated, I always thought we would be in a state where everything's legal. Where I come from, it was, there was penalties, but it was still as healthy as it is today. So, I've always imagined people getting hip, being turned on and saying, "Oh yeah, this is a medicine."
So you were born in Canada, right? And you grew up there, and so like in America, our drug education is very like anti-drug. It's all like cannabis or marijuana makes like your brain broken, and like there's all these negative effects, and like makes you lazy and unmotivated.
You just described me.
So it's true. Do you remember your drug education and like sort of when you sort of, I don't know, maybe realized like, hey, this isn't exactly right. What's up here?
Well, no, I grew up in the 50s. That's when I went to school. And in the 50s, everybody believed it really did, make you want to kill your parents. And
reefer madness.
Reefer madness. No, they totally believed that. I mean, to the point where, it was scared. I was scared of it. I was. The first time I got high, my buddy went to L.A. and came back with a Lenny Bruce record and a joint, and he handed them both to me. And I put it in my pocket. I wasn't going to light it up. I didn't know what it was going to do. And so so he pulled another one out, lit it up and got me high. And then I said, okay, I'll take all you got. I was hooked. And it was highly, highly, highly illegal then. You know, people went to jail for years for a joint, you know, or dealing a dime bag. I had a boarder at my house one time, my parents' house, and he got caught with a dime bag and went to jail for a year. So yeah, I've never really understood laws. You know, when you grow up like I did in the 50s, like I said, racism was the law of the land. And that's exactly what the marijuana laws were and still are. It was just a plain, simple racist law. And now, you know, people are starting to sober up.
Well, so you were a musician before you got into comedic roles and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about your early years? What got you into music and who some of your early influences were?
Well, I started out as a country musician, and it wasn't it wasn't for pleasure. It was for work, because I learned how to play guitar when I was like 8 years old. And in the country, that's how old you have to be to start doing work like a man, you know, and like you're driving tractors or trucks. And
they got country music in Canada, huh?
Yeah, are you kidding? That's where it started. I mean, that's, you know, I was in the country. We only had one radio station, and at the time, I don't think we had a radio, and that was it. So I started playing for dances, for parties. I was a backup guitar player, and that's how I got into playing guitar. And then when I was a teenager, I went to Army Cadets, and I met a First Nations young Elvis Presley impersonator. He was going to be. He wasn't when I met him, but he ended up being a Elvis Presley impersonator. And we used to just play for our own fun in the barracks, Army Cadets, you know, just to sit around and play, like in the movies, you know, where they just sit around, hey, play us a tune. And he became an Elvis impersonator. And so we were doing shows in front of high school lunchtime crowds. And I got hooked.
But then you had a song go on the top 100, right? You had a hit. I
eventually wrote a rhythm and blues poem, and then this great composer who's no longer with us, Canadian, he took my poem and made it into a hit song. Does Your Mama Know About Me? Recorded by Diana Ross, Jermaine Jackson, and cool. Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers.
How old were you when that went down?
Oh, I was pretty old then. I was in my 30s. I was about my 30s, yeah. We won a what do you call it? A teen fair contest, and we won a recording contract. But when the guy went to pay it off, we had to go to the nearest radio station, and they recorded us. We're in the hallway with our instruments, and they're taping us on a 1/4-inch reel, and that was my first record that I put out. I had an instrumental on the B-side called Junior's Jerk.
How did you meet Cheech Marin?
Cheech, we met. I went through, the music phase. Then I got fired. I got fired from Motown by mistake, kind of. We ended up being a backup band because, like all hit groups, the first thing they do, the Sharks come in and take the singer, take the best of the bunch, if they're willing to go. And Bobby, even though we never had but that one hit, he was ready to go. So I got fired from Motown, and I went back to Vancouver and started improvisational theater in a topless nightclub. And that's where I met Cheech. Yeah, we needed a straight man, and he applied for the job. But he auditioned us. That was the funny part.
What do you mean?
Well, I went out to where he was working. He was selling hippie newspapers, but he was living with the editor who had a nice house in Richmond, BC, out by the airport in Vancouver. And so I went out to where he was working. They had a whole magazine set up, little booths and at the time, was it computers? No, typewriters. And I met Cheech and I told him, what I had going, and he says, "I'll come down and check you out." Of course. So he was going to audition before he got the job. And so when he saw the group, he came backstage and said, "Yeah, I'm in." And that's how I met Cheech. And then we got fired because we had changed the strip club into a theater. And then, so instead of like 20 drunk bikers throwing money everywhere, we ended up with a theater crowd. Yeah. When you run a strip club, there's a little gangster edge to you, and gangsters don't mess around. Hey, you're in, you're out. Hey, you're out. and even though I own the club, we got fired. But I've always went ahead. Every time I got fired, I jumped ahead. I moved, one door closed and the other one opened. And so then Cheech and I went to L.A. because I had a family living in L.A. And this is where you go when you want to make it. So we came down to L.A. and we used a scooter, a little Honda 90. That was our transportation. And we just went around, hit all the places where you could play free. There was no comedy clubs. There were just like small nightclubs, black nightclubs, R&B bands, intermission, floor show, and then one hippie club. And that's where we really evolved. That's where we got the Latino character. And the rest is history. Then we got discovered at a folk club. And then we cut a record. We cut another one, then another one, and another one.
I remember the big rolling paper you put in one of them, and then pretty sure we tried to use that.
It's still selling. It sells. It sounds like crazy, And it's so funny because people really, a lot of people don't have a record player, and even if they do, they don't play it at all.
What was the sort of creative kind of process like for you? Would you sit down and write together? Was it mostly improv? Like, how'd you get your sketches down?
It was mostly improv. It was all improv, really. The only thing I wrote really was the set list. What we're going to do. Okay, we'll start off with this, then we'll go here. Because I used to, when I had a band, we always had a set list. And then we figure out what we're going to do. And that's all we ever wrote with Cheech and Chong. Because, when you work in a strip club like we did for 9 months, you develop a sense of knowing what the other guy's going to do. You know what I'm saying? You find what buttons to push. And that's what Cheech and I discovered. And so when we did the movies like we did our records. When we did our record, we only rehearsed one time, and that became our biggest hit record. That was The Dave's Not Here, and it was the rehearsal that we recorded. We never did get around to doing the bit. It was all the intro, and because I wouldn't let him in the door. Say, who is it? It was very funny because it was real. And then when we started going to the studio, and then we realized we don't need all the trappings. And so we jumped ahead, like you do now. We didn't need a whole crew of engineers and gophers and stuff like that, producers. We just needed a guy to put push the on button and push the off button. That's all. And so that's how we did our records. And we kind of did our movies. Movies were different. Movies were a lot different because a movie by nature is like working with an entire family, where everybody has a job. That's one thing about a movie crew. If you're standing there, you pick up something or hold something or move out of the way, And so that's how we, it was our ability to the improvisational theater give us the ability to find the core of whatever we were doing, and that really is, that's the basic rule of acting, find out who you are and then act accordingly.
Tommy, so that's a good segue into asking you, how much of your character was just you, and how much was sort of an exaggerated, maybe caricature of you?
You can't really divide. Actors can't divide. I know they say, no, everything is 100% me. It's just me. It's me doing certain evolutions of myself, basically. There was a time when I was at, when I played the stoner. There was a time when I was not really that guy, but I knew that guy, because I'm a writer. If there's one thing that I will say I am, and that's a writer, because I always write. I'm writing everything. Even when I was a kid in school, I'd read my literature books before I would do anything. And then I couldn't understand math. I couldn't, because I never really applied myself, but to writing. And so I'm a writer. And writers, we pick up stories. We pick up all sorts of weird characteristics about someone. And that's why Meryl Streep is such a phenomenal actress, because she's got it down to the science, where she can dig all that out of a character, those little movements. And what it is communicating. You're communicating with your audience, but you're doing it in such a subtle way that the audience can't help but watch you. Michael Caine, the actor, he once gave out a secret of acting, and the secret really is don't blink, because as long as you got your eyes open, you got people drawn into your orbs, because they're reading everything you're giving them with your eyes. But the minute you blink or look away or something, you can break that thing, which they do purposely. That's what Cheech and I found out right into the fire. There was no in between. Like, there was no school. Like, we never went to acting school or directing school or movie school. I wish I had it, but no. It's what we went through was life school, the school of life.
Yeah.
And it's those jobs that you had that no one else would take, and that's the only reason you got the job. Those kind of jobs, they became, for me as a writer, they became a source of wealth, and that's, and when I met Cheech, and also there's a thing about faith, the belief in something. And that's what they say, people, the spiritual or the religious path, they're always talking about people of faith. Well, what is faith? Faith is a supreme belief in something. And when that something is yourself, then you become the vehicle at whatever you believe in, whatever it is. Because in our physical world, there has to be a down to create an up. You can't have up without down. You can't have good without evil. And that's why evil can be so fascinating. Because when someone is perfectly evil, they're fascinating because you're seeing perfection.
Did you ever play evil characters, bad characters? Ever play the bad guy?
Only on stage. But yeah, on stage, yeah. Cheech and I did a bit, the undercover cop, and I was an undercover cop, and I was smoking as a bad guy, but we had such a good, oh man, that bit, and we put that bit with Dave's Not Here, because we could never do our record bits on stage, and that was a kind of it was a challenge in a way, but it was also respect for the art of recording.
So I'm curious, I mean, do you still use cannabis? And if so, what strains do you like? I've also heard that, as you age, your relationship with cannabis kind of evolves. I'm someone that smokes daily, and I've kind of felt that as I've gotten older, my relationship with weed changes. And you're 82. Yeah. I wonder how that's changed for you.
Well, just think about what cannabis does to you. It slows you down and puts you in the moment. And it depends. See, it puts you in the moment, so it depends on what you're doing with those moments. You see, like if you're plotting to kill somebody, you'll probably come up with a real good plan because you're in the moment. Or if you're a football player, a bodybuilder, put you in the moment. And so if you got to, do these certain moves, it sharpens, it relaxes the brain, and it turns everything over to body memory. So it can do it, but again, it depends on what brain is relaxing. Because sometimes, in a lot of cases, there's a certain people that should never go near cannabis because it'll open the door that'll scare the hell out of them sometimes, and it has, that's what paranoia is. Paranoia is extreme fear. If you get that fear, oh man, it's not good. But see, again, you see what paranoia does, the fight or flight. When an animal senses danger, it either runs like hell or freezes, fight or flight. And that's what paranoia does. Paranoia is really fear of the unknown. And, but if you have faith, you see, this is where faith comes in. Because if you have faith, there's nothing to be afraid of. That sound in the dark, it's not a boogeyman. It's the wind blowing a leaf, branch against the window, But then again, it could trigger something in the mind that goes like it did with me. As soon as I got high, I realized exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And that was to experience life, not to be told about other people's experiences with life, but to go out there and become that ditch digger, become the taxi driver, become the waiter, become become everything. Because all you're doing then, if you're a writer, all you're doing is you're in disguise. Like waiters can hear stuff that wives and husbands don't hear.
Right.
I was a waiter for 15 years. That is true.
You become a therapist.
We're all journalists and writers, and we all cover drugs quite a bit. And I think all three of us really have really been embedded in America's drug culture, the drug laws, and of course that's why we're talking to you, because like your story in American drug culture is it's almost like the origin story, the genesis of the stoner role, and like you were coming up in comedy in the 70s, and that's when like guys like Ronald Reagan and John Wayne were running Hollywood, and the rugged individual driving off into the sunset, like that was the mainstream culture. And so how conscious were you of trying to subvert that or be identified with the counterculture at that time?
I had a leg up with it because I was half Chinese. I'm half brown, but I could be anybody. I look like an Arab, an Italian, anything, a Scotch, Irish, And so I had a nice leg up with that, but with all cultures. You see, that's why I could fit into the Black culture seamlessly, and I did. I not only have Chinese, but then I married a Black girl. And I've got two beautiful Black children, and then my grandson, who is half Black. No, let's see, my daughter's half Black, so he's a quarter, and he married a Chinese girl, and so we started a whole cycle again. Now he's got half. I don't know. He's got this mix. There's a mixed family, and my son just married a Indonesian lady, Rama, and she has children. I mean, that was my power, that I represent everybody. And so therefore I did. I literally, like I said, I had a hit parade, a hit song on the Black station, and it never really went popular. It just stayed on the rhythm and blues charts forever. So yeah, that was, and even in the when I went to prison, I was treated like a celebrity by everybody. Because I'd been on Dr. Dre's rap record. Wow. I had Black kids looking at me, yeah, he was on Dr. Dre. Oh man!
Was your cellmate the Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah, Wolf of Wall Street. And isn't it funny because they put celebrities in the prison together, and so I ended up with, and I heard he was coming. Everybody did, and we hit it off. He's such a genius. I mean, he is a genius. We never buddied in prison because he always had people working for him. There's doing his bidding. Because when you're rich in prison, you pay with the commissary. You buy a guy's commissary. The food, whatever they need. And there's a lot of people in prison, they don't have any money to do that. So they work for the richer prisons. And so Jordan, but we shared a cubicle, and I'd be writing every night. And one night he just asked me, "What are you doing?" And I told him, "I'm writing my book." And he goes, "I'm going to write a book." And he started writing, and then he showed me what he wrote, to show me how smart he was. And he had no idea. Well, I guess he did. I was going to say he didn't know what to expect, but I think he did, and which is because he is too smart. He is brilliant. And so when I read what he wrote, it was a copy, almost word for word, of Bonfires of the Vanities by Tom Wolfe. And so I told him, and I guess it was a test, because I could have said, "Oh wow, man, you're really, this is incredible," but I didn't. I said, "You did the right shit." And he goes, "What?" Then he says, "Well, what should I write?" I said, "Well, write those stories that you've been telling me every night," because he used to put me to sleep every night with a new story about his life as the Wolf of Wall Street. He wasn't called the Wolf of Wall Street at the time, when he was telling me that, but he was telling me all these great stories, about, I'd heard about him, he was that stock swim, manipulator, and he had made hundreds of millions of dollars. And but the stories he told me, because he like the movie, if you saw the movie, is a Quaalude freak, and that was his downfall. He got addicted to Quaaludes, which they're the worst. They're the worst. How
can you trade stocks on Quaaludes?
Yeah, they turn you into a rubber man. You know, you can't get out of your own way.
I pictured those guys doing cocaine, but Quaaludes, all right.
Quaaludes, that was his whole thing. And they would do coke so they could, maintain, cut the Quaalude high. But the Quaaludes is all about sex. You see, that's what it was. Rich guys, that's what they get addicted to. Wealthy guys, that's why they get those $1 zillion yachts. They hit, so you get out there, they hire the hookers and they load up the boat with all the booze and all the chicks they can afford or find, and away they go. And it's a debauchery, from then on in, because those guys, like someone asked me, "You think Trump ever smoked a joint?" I said, "Of course he did." And they said, "How do you know?" I said, "Well, he's always been around beautiful women. And in every case, it's always the beautiful women. I need to get high." To deal with what we're dealing with, I need to get high. And then when they're putting them through their little sexual trips, it's here, smoke this. What, are you going to refuse? You're going to say, "Oh, no,
It sounds like those Wall Street guys were the real radical drug users at that time, not the stoners and the hippies. These guys were
never the stoners. The stoners and the hippies were too busy trying to stay stoners and hippies. Finding a place to live, trying, selling, making arts and crafts, selling little things here and there, playing music, waiting tables, they're healthy, and they're much healthier. It's the rich people and the famous people, and and it doesn't matter who you are, be it Prince or be it any of those guys, that when you get into Michael Jackson, you get into that money, then you can buy any kind of drug available, and then you got guys that want that money of yours.
You buy a doctor to get you any drug.
Yeah.
Get it the legal, white market way.
Yeah, you can do all that. You can do anything. And that's the only thing. A lot of these rich guys, what they have the ability to make money, and they're smart, they're intelligent. And their only downfall really is what girls think of them. And you find a lot of those rich guys, man, they got a lot of money, but they have to buy their love. They have to buy their love. And that was the problem with Tiger, because Tiger would buy his love, but he wouldn't pay the bill. It's same as he tried to negotiate when the bill came due. You're not supposed to negotiate.
He's a billionaire. What's he doing?
That's what I'm saying. But it's a habit these guys got. And I've been around them. I know I got billionaire friends. They'll park blocks away so they don't have to pay the valet. And they got more money than they'll ever spend in their lifetime, if they blew it every day. Like I was this one Lebanese guy. It's a funny story. I was looking for a little boat, just a little skiff, 14-footer, But the word went out that Tommy Chong was looking for a boat. And so this rich Lebanese guy, he had 3 yachts that he wanted to show me. He's trying to sell one of them. And each 3 yacht had a crew that weren't doing anything except sitting there waiting for him to say, "Let's go." And so I saw the problems of the rich, when you have too much. And so I understand, I understand that mindset now,
As Zach sort of alluded to, in the late 70s, mid 70s, when you were making Up in Smoke, there was a real, anti-drug fervor. Marijuana was seen as a gateway drug into harder, things. How hard was that movie to make and get bought? Who took a chance on it? Were you surprised at how well it did?
It was a Lou Adler. We wrote it, we starred in it, but Lou was the guy that made it happen. I wanted to get. In fact, I wrote another movie called Jack and the Weedstock, and that was the one I was working on because we were supposed to go on tour again, and I said, "Nah, I'm not going on tour. I'm going to do a movie." And so right away, Cheech and Lou went, "Oh, we're going to do a movie, okay." And so Lou made the deal with Paramount because he had friends with Paramount. It was Lou Adler. Lou Adler put the deal together, and then we were looking for, we were trying to do it the way they made movies back then, and so we needed a director, and so we looked at Floyd Matrix, who had done American Graffiti, I think, a few others, but we never got along, because it was a Cheech and Chong movie. We don't know what it is until we shoot it, until we get there.
Did you smoke actual weed on set? Or
not the big joints. That was all movie dope. But in between takes, Cheech and I we'd share a joint, and it really helped. Really helped. But the secret of the movie really was Lou Adler. Lou Adler had these big way of doing things, but we've never had a hit that big since, and I'm not saying we didn't do a good movie. Like, I figured next movie got actually more critical acclaim, but not near, because Lou, you got to get around people that are big money thinkers, and they're the ones that'll bring in the stars and that's what Lou did. He brought in Stacy Keach. He brought in, my father, and so he's, so Lou really was the reason that movie went as crazy as it did.
Just for some context for our listeners, that this movie brought $30 million within the first couple weeks it was out, and that's $120 million in today's currency, and it was the number 2 grossing film in the country at the time, right behind Animal House. So this was a phenomenon. This blew up, and were you surprised by its success?
Well, first of all, figure it cost less than it was supposed to cost. We got $1 million to do it, and I think we made it for $800,000. So that's without our wages, without our pay. But we actually made it under $1 million, that movie. And it was such a groundbreaker and it never had a message, but it had an overall message. The plot itself, it was just the first reality show, really. It was like the day in the life of a stoner and a Chicano, the lowrider. That's all. And then then we made it work, but it got the right wing people. They jumped on. The Christians, and what was her name? I can't even think of her name now. Tipper Gore, yeah. Tipper Gore. She was against heavy metal because of the lyrics. And,
yeah, she took it to Congress, and they had a whole hearing about heavy metal, and they're trying to get the music industry to put sort of like what the MPAA does for movies, like a rated R film. They wanted rated R music or whatever,
Well, we changed the rating system because they had no drug use, excessive drug use warnings on any movie, and so our movie bypassed it in the advertisement, and our logo was "Don't go straight to this movie." We broke it. It came back to haunt me when I was sentenced to prison for selling bongs, which I never did.
This is Operation Pipe Dreams.
Yeah, Operation Pipe Dreams, which I had to take. I took the rap, because they were going to go after my son who was selling it. And they just wanted me anyway. They wouldn't have touched him, but I couldn't take that chance. And they brought up and Smoke. They said, I made millions making fun of law enforcement agencies.
Oh my God!
It's in the court transcript.
You were persecuted.
Yeah, you were basically targeted. Like,
oh yeah.
How did that feel? Like the federal government, like explicitly. If people want more details, there's this really great documentary, AKA Tommy Chong, which I just watched. The whole thing's on YouTube. It's great. But yeah, even Operation Pipe Dreams is only 2 letters away from Nice Dreams, the name of the store the bongs are being sold from. It's ridiculous. How did that make you feel that they targeted you this way?
No, well, they elevated me. They took me from, pop comedian to activist to it gave me a voice. Give me a voice. Give me, like I'm doing shows like this. People asking me, they want to know because, I really did it. It wasn't hard because it's ordained. I believe there's no accidents. Everything happens for a reason. And especially my life, I've always believed that. Like I said, it's a faith, belief life. It's what you believe is how you're going to live and what you believe in. Now you can believe in the worst things in the world, like people do. But they'll live that whole life for that experience. See, that's the whole point. Now, the good news, as the prophets have always gave us, is that we can choose the life that we live, and I did, and that's exactly what I did. I chose this life. I chose every move that I made. It was my choice. I wanted to make it. Like I really wanted to go to jail, and I had that in my mind since I was 15 years old. And the tattoo I got from a guy that just got out of jail in the 50s. It was tough. In the 50s, it was like serious. In the jail he went into had a silent system. And the silent system was that you did not utter a sound from the time you walked through the gates until the time you're released and get out of the gates. You cannot utter a sound unless you're given permission to. And Erwin McCann gave me that tattoo because it's a homemade tattoo. And the way he did it was a straight needle or a pin, bobby pin or what, not a bobby pin, but, safety net pin tied to a pencil point. And it made a point. And he would dig under the skin
like the poke
with
method,
ink,
right?
with ink, and then poke it. Yeah. And so in his prison, like I said, the silent system. Can you imagine back in those days? Whoa. The lash was still applied in Canada for rape. If you got caught for rape, you could get 5-10 lashes back with a cat of nine tails on the bare back. And they had another punishment in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada, where they would strap a prisoner across a gymnast horse, and they put the hands on one side and feet on the other side, pull his pants down, and then whack him with a 5-foot cricket bat that was part rubber and metal. It was an alloy with perforated holes. One whack, if you're lucky, you passed out with the first whack. If you survived 2, that was weird. And then after the 4th or 5th, well, they quit doing it because you're not feeling anything anyway. And so you usually get 3 or 4, and sometimes guys got many as 15. And then you slept on your stomach for the rest of your stay in prison. And that would be for talking. That would be for giving a guard a dirty look. So prison was pretty rough, and so back in those days, when like the white supremacists, I mean, in the States, they had to do that to survive. To survive, they had to gang up, and Yeah, it was, and that, now I lived through all that, and then I go to prison, and it's evolved to the point where that if you didn't have a great high school education, then you were mandated to get a high school education. and so when my prison, it was like a camp or a monastery, because all I did, was read my spiritual books and work in the garden, making bongs out of clay.
You did 9 months, right? Sentenced to 9 months?
Yes, I did 9 months.
And you made bongs in size?
Yeah. Hey, listen, not only made them out of clay, but I built a kiln in the Indian sweat lodge area. I built a kiln and I fired my bongs. It took a weekend. It didn't work. I didn't get the fire hot enough because I couldn't stoke it. I had a railroad tie in there. And the reason I could do it on the weekend is that there was very light personnel there, and they didn't look out the window. And oh man, the prison I was in, Taft, the prisoners really ran the whole prison, and they'd try to catch me smoking weed. That was the big game. They would, I'd be offered weed, and then 20 minutes later they would call me into the control to get me drug tested. But I never failed a test. I never smoked for 3 years, so I was a good guy.
Do you still smoke now? And if you do, like, what kind of strains do you like?
Really, I'm way behind on testing the strains. I was given strains about 5-10 years ago at the Emerald Cup, and I'm still testing them. But the trouble is, I test it, then I can't remember what bottle I got it out of, what strain it is. And so that's a good name for it, strain, because it is a strain to try to do all that shit.
Yeah, I had a job once reviewing weed, and it was really hard because it's be like, it's kind of all the same, but it's not sort of slightly different. It's hard to say. It was hard for me.
It depends on you. It depends on what you've eaten. It depends the time of day. It depends on the weather. It depends on your mood. It all depends on you. It depends on why you're smoking. I got these strips that my friends love them. Maybe because they're free, but for me, but they're breast strips, and you can they're 10 milligrams. I got some special ones made for me with 20 milligrams, but 20 is like an all-day siesta.
Yeah, I eat like 2 milligram edible bites, and that's like the perfect zone for me. I guess I'm a lightweight.
No, I'm a lightweight too, man. I'm a one toker too. But the thing is it's a one toke, but then maybe a half hour later I'll do another toke, and then maybe a half hour later I'll do another toke. So it's a one toker, but it's a one toke all day.
How do you feel about where the cannabis industry is going now? Like 15 states have legalized it, and there's like celebrities endorsing it. You got like Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg and Willie Nelson. Like what do you think about the kind of the business side of this? And because like it was criminalized for so long, and now people are getting rich off of it. Like, what do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. You know what the cannabis industry is like? It's like watching the beginning of an avalanche. At first this little pebble starts rolling down the mountain, then it hits another pebble, and then pretty soon you got a couple of them, and pretty soon it hits a bigger rock, and next thing you know you got a half a mountain coming down. That's what the cannabis industry is. That's why it's so silly, when they come in, like in Colorado, you got to tag all the plants and all that ain't going to last, because eventually when they legalize it, when we can bank our money, big business will come in, and there's no doubt about it. The cannabis business will always have its mom and pops. It will always be there. And I used to say, when it's legal, your grandmother will grow more pot than you'll be able to use. And that's usually the case. Now I know people that grow and 2-3 crops a year. And what do? It's not all personal use. And so the cannabis industry is perfect for its time. There's nothing you could do about it. It's like this pandemic. It's something that you have to deal with, and deal with it in an intelligent manner. And that's what cannabis is doing. Cannabis is changing the face from the hippie anti-war person to the old lady that can't sleep all night look, and that's good. That's really good. And the thing is, you can't control people's taste. If you could, oh boy, all you can do is cater to their taste. And that's what's happening now. So what'll happen with the cannabis world all over is that once it gets legal, then states and then countries will try to outdo themselves with the way they handle it, and it'll all be handled in such a way that suits the government of the area, or the will of the people. Cannabis, by the way, is going to change Russia. It's going to change all those dictatorships places, just like the internet is doing. And those guys are going to go like Trump. They're going to be eliminated eventually. And because cannabis, like I said, it affects the mind. It affects the mind. And so right now it's affecting the mind of governors, senators, Cory Booker and Pamela Harris, they all, like Barack Obama, they all know about cannabis. And I really truly believe that Rush Limbaugh and Donald Trump, they tried it, but they don't like it, because it interferes with their ability to be an idiot.
Limbaugh liked OxyContin. He was into the opioids
and cigars,
and he's dead. Yeah.
In preparation for this segment, I did a bit of Googling, and I saw you and Cheech performing, I think, on George Lopez. I don't know how long ago that was. You did Mexican Americans, and then you transitioned into sort of like a Legalize It anthem. I thought it was really great.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So does your opposition to prohibition extend to other drugs as well?
Well, it's medicine. Drugs are medicine, no matter how you look at it. It's medicine, and medicine is designed to make you feel better. That's all, and to heal. Sometimes to heal. Other times it just eliminates the pain. And that's what heroin and those drugs. That's what they do. They eliminate pain. Now, the trouble is the pain comes back too soon and it's only eliminated temporarily, and therefore it's not a good fix. But that's what poor people, that's all they can afford, like you talk about legalizing all drugs, which, yeah, they should, because like rich people, all drugs have always been legal for these people. And the only time, unless they get caught doing something stupid, like a DUI or you get caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, no one's going to bother rich people. Look at the Rolling Stones. Look at Mick and Keith. They've been doing heroin all their lives. And then they clean up. They get blood transfusions. They change their blood. Then they lose the habit. And who knows what they're into now, But and they're still alive. If you got money and you got the right doctor, you can do drugs forever. So yeah, what we got to do, and we will do eventually, we can't clean up everything, and we shouldn't even try. Do your job, unless that's your job. That's your calling. Like to get rid of the plastic problem. I saw something on TV where they got a boat now that goes over the rivers and like a vacuum cleaner, it sucks up all the plastic. And have you heard about that?
Yeah, I've heard it doesn't work as well as some of the creators say. It sucks up a lot of wildlife, whatever. Who knows? Like, we got to do something about plastic, but
I mean, climate change is a bigger problem than drugs, is what we're all probably saying.
yeah, true.
Saving the planet.
I got a plan. I got a great plan how to fix society, but who knows if it ever gets implemented? Because I've always foresaw things. Like I tried to make it an electric bike back in the 80s anyway, 84, 85, somewhere around there. And I did. I made a little electric tricycle, and it only worked, in the yard. And I got bored, but I foresaw a lot of things coming. And like this pandemic, the pandemic really is a reboot of Earth, because we're heading so heavy into that climate change that we needed to, like a computer, you got to turn everything off and then turn everything back on again. And that's exactly what we did with the pandemic. And we got computers now that are changing our lives. I realize that, that eventually the computers will solve paralysis, where people with spinal injuries, they're going to be able to put a chip in the body that will act like a spinal cord and do all the functions, and even better in some ways,
The question is if a spinal implant will have Bluetooth.
That's a good question. It'll probably be a new one, Yeah. Who knows? All of a sudden you hit a guy and you got a guy dancing over in the corner.
So how old are you? How is your health now? Yeah.
My health is perfect. It's great. It's great. I'm right now. I'm still, I'm enjoying the lockdown, and I'm doing I work out. I try to work out almost every day. I walk. Every time I feel like taking a nap, I get up and walk. Because I know if I take a nap, I'm just going to want another nap.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, because you pretty famously treated your cancer with cannabis. And both my parents have struggled with cancer. Both of them kind of refused to take cannabis. I keep trying to convince them, like, what's the harm? I'm not saying take cannabis instead of chemotherapy, but you could combine both, and it seems like what was your experience like?
It's a karma. It's a karma, I know. I immediately, I had a what do you call it? My butt removed, the anal operation, and I have a colostomy bag. And so during the healing process, I started doing CBD oil and injection right into the muscle. And so I did that. It got me, I never ever got hooked on opioids, Oxycontin, anything like that. I was hooked up to it. I was pounding the hell out of that button. I was taking advantage of all my nice. Opioid times, But as soon as I got out of the hospital, I cold turkeyed everything and just do my weed. But I've never had that. I've always been mellow. I've never had that anxious thing that people get, junkies get, alcoholics, junkies, I need something, never had that. But I learned how to exercise, because exercise will give you the same high as drugs, That's why you see people out there running in the rain.
Yeah.
They're getting their heroin,
Right. It's endocannabinoids, endorphins. Those are related to cannabinoids and opioids.
Yeah.
That's why people that exercise a lot, if they don't get their exercise in, they get really grouchy. They get mad.
The body gets pissed off because the body wants to be moved, like a racehorse, wants to run. It's been trained. You got to run in the body. That's why, you sit down too long, you get used to it. You're not long for the planet. You're gonna, so you got to keep moving, because when you're moving, you're doing exactly what the body was designed to do. You see, that's why in this physical world we live in, when there's drought, like Sam Kinison used to say, he would say, "This is sand. You can't grow anything with sand. Move. You go somewhere where there's some dirt and water." And it was so true, But the exercise, that's always been my secret. It cures everything. It cures a broken heart. My son, when he'd have a broken heart, some girl left him or something. "Well, I do, Dad." I said, "Go work out." And what'll happen is that you take all that anger and all that tension and you're pushing weights. Next thing you know, you're looking like a hunk, and pretty soon you forgot the name of the girl that you once were crying over because you got so many looking at what a beautiful body you got.
Yeah.
So,
do you still play? Do you still play music in your spare time? Yeah.
In your
oh
spare time? Yeah.
yeah.
Who are some of your favorite artists alive today?
Today?
Yeah.
Well, I like Dave Chappelle as a comedian.
Mhm.
I love the state he's in now. And God, I'm seeing a lot of people on YouTube and that are really impressive. A lot of street people. But I've been watching mostly what do you call it, TV shows. And, I'm catching up on all that. It's funny now because my taste, I can't take horror. I don't like that. I don't like those images.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, no, I like, what I really like now is travel shows.
Yeah.
Here in beautiful Italy. Oh, I love travel shows.
I miss Anthony Bourdain. His show was the best.
Oh, I loved Anthony Bourdain. Yeah, I was kind of bummed when he OD'd the way he did. But I understood totally because
Oh no, it wasn't an OD. It was a suicide.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, he had done everything.
Yeah.
Once you're a heroin addict, it's just a matter of time before you go back. Like alcoholism, there's going to come a time, That's why they count the days. I'm clean 3 months. I'm clean 6 years. I'm clean 30 years because they know eventually it's going to be, I'm not clean anymore.
Well, there's two of us on here you're talking to that are in that that would qualify as that, and I don't count the days.
Yeah, so I definitely used to use heroin. So I'm 31. Back in my 20s, I did heroin, and I don't count days anymore. It's just like
Good.
It's like moved on.
Well, you've been down that road.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Hey, listen, some of the most admired people in my life, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, all those guys. Yeah, all of them. They're smacked out. The reason they asked me, how come I once asked Lenny Bruce's Tony, his dealer, the guy that gave him the dope that killed him. I said to Tony, what's the big deal with heroin? How come there's so many people on heroin? He didn't say a word. He reached in his pocket, pulled out a packet of heroin, and gave it to me. And I put it in my pocket. Then I took it out of my pocket, got home, put it in a sock drawer, and then a month later, I took it out of my sock drawer and I put it in the toilet, flushed it. I did not want to find out because I knew.
Yeah.
Because I knew.
Well, probably
Miles and Coltrane, all these guys, But I never. Well, no, I take that back. I did know a bodybuilder that was a junkie. He was an alcoholic first, then he's a junkie. But no, hey, that's what we're here to do. Experience, live.
Well, I'd say if you still had Lenny Bruce's dope around, I'd probably give it another shot.
See, that's a test. I've been tested many, many, many times, and so far, right now I've got too much to lose. Remember when Trump was saying, "What do you got to lose? What do you got to lose?" Well, I look around. I got a lot to lose, and so I'm staying. And besides, when you find the reason why you're here, when you find that out, then wow, life really becomes a waiting game for the next test, because you're always tested. You're tested every day, and as long as that's the faith. As long as you got faith, man, you will survive the test.
Well, since you keep mentioning faith, how do you describe your faith? Do you have like a religious doctrine? Do you consider yourself a Buddhist or Christian or whatever? I mean, maybe you don't have one.
I have them all.
Yeah.
I've discovered the essence of all religion, and it's just something that I know, and I've been taught by in prison, because we have angels. We all have angels, and my angels, I'm very tight with them, and they've shown me, sometimes physically, but usually just through my senses, through weed, actually. The cannabis, that was a burning bush that turned Moses on, and it's the same burning bush that I talked to.
Yeah, I agree with that. Kathleen Harrison talks about that. That there's like a spirit in traditional cannabis use, that the mother spirit or something like that. It's really interesting. I can kind of feel that when I smoke.
What we all have, and I'll leave you with this. We all have a God app built into us ourselves. Just like you have an app on your phone, like a Zoom app, a photo app. We have a God app, every one of us. And it's the essence of our being. And all you have to do to make your life whatever you want it to make it is to access that God app. And the way you access it is so simple. All you have to do is think of God. You can't have two thoughts in your mind at the same time, no matter who you are. Even if you're a chess player, and like I always think of life kind of like swimming. We all can swim, but in order to swim, you got to get over your fear of drowning, and you got to know how to move your arms and legs to keep you from drowning, to keep you above the water. And then when you learn that, then next thing you know, you're swimming, because you know how to move faster and faster, because we came from the ocean, you see. And so a lot of times people, they're afraid to swim, so they'll cling to the side of the pool or the side of their life. They'll cling to something that's okay, is safe. I'm okay here. And a lot of times, and for a good reason, a lot of people live in the past because their past was either so brutal or so beautiful that they can't leave the past. And so with the God app, use that God app to take you wherever you want to go, do whatever you want to do. It's all doable. If you got to write a song or something, don't do it yourself. Say, God, help me. and the miracles will come. Now, you know what the secret is? Is that you cannot share this knowledge with anybody unless they ask. That's the key.
Yeah. I was listening to some Ram Dass recently, and he talks about how true compassion is not trying to pull somebody into your worldview. Like, you're not just trying to save somebody. That's the real Christian, or not Christian, but evangelical like worldview, that you have to save everybody from themselves. And it's like, nobody that didn't ask to be saved will accept that. You have to just, only when they're ready, then you can share this with them. I agree with that.
I learned a great lesson in when I first moved to California. I couldn't stay away from the beach because I grew up in Canada. There's no beach anywhere. And so I was at the beach almost every day. And so one time I'm in the water and I see a guy bobbing in the water, and he looks like a dead body. He's just laying, just bobbing. And so I go over and I thought, I better help body, I better bring this body to shore. I felt, I got help. And as soon as I touched him, he put his head up. What, what are you doing? And then I realized this guy, that's the way he deals with water.
Yeah.
He likes, and it was a great lesson. It was a great lesson, so stay on your own towel. That's what the yoga say, and that's what you do. And sometimes it's hard, especially when you see something going down that, but then again, that God app, because a lot of times you get like this, oh God, what am I going to do? You hear it, how natural that phrase is. Oh my God. But you see, it works. That's the only phrase that people do when they're making love.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. I was going to say thank you so much for the the spiritual stuff. That's not really what we cover on the show at all, but I'm really glad that we can branch out into that. This has been great.
You can't talk cannabis with me anyway without getting spiritual.
Yeah.
Because that's the burning bush.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap up there. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. It's been really great to talk to you.
My pleasure.
Really great.
Anytime. We'll do it again, okay?
Okay, take care.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to Narcotica, an independent production by Chris Maraff, Zachary Siegel, and Troy Farah, and I'm your co-producer, Garrett Farah. Our theme music is by Glassboy, additional music is by Jesse Spillane, and Jenny Shea is the voice of Narcotica. Narcotica is an ad-free program, and we would like to keep it that way. So if you like us and think we're cool, you could help the show by pledging to us on Patreon. But if that's not your style, that's fine. Still help us out by spreading the word. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere where podcasts are available. And be sure to follow us on your preferred flavor of leading cause of depression, like Facebook or Twitter. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. It's a little bit of a weird one, but I think that's okay. Have a very nice night.